can't get it.
So you see how much kidnappers are taking from victims.
My thing is, government will all the stakeholders will need to get that, and I think we get that. The 3% for the oil producing community is too low.
But the support that is needed, and once you get the support, your airline will blossom.
This is Nigeria. You need to give people sense of belonging.
Good morning. This is Inside Nigeria Leadership Television, and it was the last edition for the week. My name is Winnie Podokova, and with me in the studio is public affairs analyst, Mr. Majid Tahir. Mr. Majid, it's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for making that time to be with us.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Let's see what the papers are saying this Friday morning. We are starting off with Nigeria's most influential newspaper, Leadership. Leadership headline says, INEC may shift 2023 polls if PMB signs electoral bill after Tuesday. INEC may shift 2023 polls if PMB signs electoral bill after Tuesday. Underneath the headline stories are riders. Provision a new electoral bill requires 360 days notice before polls. IPAC CSOs call for urgent action. No electoral act, no election timetable. Commission insists. INEC may shift 2023 polls if PMB signs electoral bill after Tuesday. Provision in new electoral bill requires 360 days notice before polls. IPAC CSOs call for urgent action. No electoral act, no election timetable. Commission insists. Now, Mr. Majid, we thought it was an issue of the direct clause, the direct primaries clause that Buhari said was the problem. And now the National Assembly reworked the bill, removed the clause, and sent it to the president. Yet the electoral amendment bill is yet to be signed.
First, let me again commend leadership newspapers.
Thank you.
This issue that they just highlighted this morning is one that is bothering anybody who is discernible enough to know that the electoral bill as presently structured is dead on arrival.
Yes.
Not because of any other reason, but because of that 360 days notice.
Clause, yes.
So for these people have gone, investigated enough to dig deep into this situation and bring out this issue. This should now, set the agenda for the conversation around the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, as well as the forthcoming general election. So this is very key that we have this conversation now. But what this tells me is simple. The president is not going to sign this law, this bill into law. Because apart from the first reason he gave about the issue of direct or no direct primaries, this is another reason why he cannot even sign. Because any shift in the election beyond the February date that you see might constitute somewhat a constitutional crisis. Election must take place certain months, a certain number of days before transition.
Yes.
So, and February is just one of the most preferred dates so far. So it tells me that there was no intention initially to sign the electoral act into law. I've already said it.
Yes.
That the issue of direct primaries or not direct primaries was just an excuse. The fact is the president is not committed to electoral reforms, and to me that shows that he's not also committed to free and fair elections. He's not committed to improving what we have, and it is clear. So no, but I was not in doubt. My argument before remains the same today. Direct primary is the most democratic form of primary election.
Yes.
In fact, delegates for indirect primaries are supposed to be elected directly. So when you now say that the primary is going to constitute security risk and all of that, and all that, as contained in the president's elected National Assembly, the question that is begging for answer is, how did you elect your party leadership and your delegates that will go and vote in the indirect primaries? How did you elect them? Did you select them? If that was the case, then it is not democratic. And so I've always known that that was just an excuse, a convenient one, not to sign this act. I think the major provision there that these people do not want to see is the electronic transmission of results. That is the crux of the matter. Don't forget that this was not an executive bill. The National Assembly worked with CSOs to come up with this bill. And the National Assembly tried to kill that aspect of the bill. They tried to do it. First, they bought NCC. NCC came and lied to the whole country that they don't have adequate coverage for transmission of results. They did. An executive branch of the government. And then the Senate now said, okay, if there must be transmission of results electronically, it should be done with the approval of the National Assembly after consultation with NCC. And then you saw the public pressure against that. And when the public pressure was mounted, they rescinded. And eventually the National Assembly passed a bill that allowed us, the electoral body, INEC, to use technology wherever they feel they can deploy STEM. So it tells you that all the while, the executive arm of government, headed by the president, did not favor these far-reaching recommendations in this bill. They did not. And that's what we are still playing out today. They've delayed the signing to a point where we sign after Tuesday, because today is Friday. The president is not even in the country, he's out of the country.
Yes.
So if he signs any day after Tuesday, it becomes a constitutional crisis. So that again is a convenient excuse now why they will not sign. To me, we should look beyond the electoral act amendment bill. They are not committed to signing this bill. Because they return it, it will require a complete overhauling of the bill, of the voting section of the bill, and some other issues. We are tired of this back and forth. Leave it as it is. Got the election, let's manage it as it is. What happens to democracy, they will be held responsible. But a democracy that is not credible, free and fair when it comes to election is a dead democracy. I don't know why we're not learning lessons. One of the reasons why democracy is failing in Africa is not because of military, because of the civilians that are behaving in an undemocratic manner, that are running democracy undemocratically. They are the ones that constituted the danger to democracy, that has led to the failure of democracy in all of African states. Nigeria should learn a lesson from that. And the best way to ward off any form of incursion into our democratic experience is to deepen our democracy by conducting free and fair elections. And what is enough for the wise?
Mr. Majid, many points are, Nigerians are disappointed that if going by the records, Buhari has supposedly has nothing to lose because he's doing his 8-year term next year and he'll be leaving office. So why is he hesitant? Is it that there are people that are holding the president to ransom? That
The president should
not sign the bill?
We should stop this narrative of attributing any wrongdoing to people around the president. We elected somebody as president. The responsibility is his. It is his doing. Let me tell you what about the power equation in Nigeria. Nobody influences the president. Nobody, no matter how powerful the president is. We are powerful only at the pleasure of the president. What you see is that some people are smart enough to understand the proclivities, the needs of the president, what they want. So you see some people championing that which the president wants forcefully and taking ownership of that. Because that is the only way they can survive with the cabal. So that's what you see happening. It is the president's decision not to sign. The president has never initiated any electoral reform process from the executive branch of government. He has not. President Adu admitted that, yes, the decision appointment to power was flawed, and he constituted a committee to review the entire electoral process. Well, he didn't live long enough to implement all the recommendations. He just started the implementation and showed commitment towards electoral reforms. And he did it between 2011 and 2015, and our democracy grew to a level that it can serve to mature. Since President Muhammadu Buhari came to power, disappointedly, for somebody who has been a victim of flawed elections and a beneficiary of a reform electoral process, one would have expected him to, as part of his war against corruption, to reform our electoral process. One of the reasons why we have problem today is a flawed electoral process. An electoral process that people can steal mandates. It's when people carry out democratic subterfuge I call it electoral banditry. You steal votes through ballot papers, you buy votes, you do all sorts of illegalities to get to power. That is a recipe for a corrupt government. So if Buhari was ready to fight corruption, the first thing he should have done, one of the things he should have used as an instrument, was to inform the electoral process that now allows people that are not crooks, that are decent, that have integrity, to be able to take advantage of our sanitary system to get into power and shut down those that are crooks. But when you leave the electoral laws not unreformed, you do the process as deformed as it has always been, you are preparing the ground for a worse form of electoral banditry in 2023. And it is the electoral bandits that become administrative bandits in power that created the bandits in the forest and in the villages because of the failure of governance. But when you are in power and you steal, you loot, you have very little to take care of for everyone's security. And so insecurity becomes the order of the day. So if the president will not sign this law, as he's already seen he will not sign, Nigeria should brace up for a war situation ahead, and may God save us all. But his name will go down in the book of infamy as the man who contributed to the demise of our democracy, if it damaged our democracy.
No, INEC is saying that no electoral act, no election timetable.
I mean that if the president declines today, or tomorrow, or the day after, and the National Assembly does not propose around, like for me, I do not think the National Assembly should waste their time proposing another amendment. No. We need to just leave this chapter and move on. So INEC would now use the old Electoral Act to now set the timetable. So for me, the National Assembly should not distract us again by amending this law. Enough is enough. This man has shown that he's not committed to electoral reforms. Like you said, he has nothing to lose, even as a first-time president. He has everything to gain by signing an electoral act into law. The only way you can guarantee yourself victory in the electoral cycle is good governance.
Yes.
And it is the easiest thing to achieve, good governance. Very easy. If you have a sanitized electoral process, the pressure on you to satisfy certain interest in the political space will be reduced because it's of no use. People cannot elect directly without any interference. And so what you really need to do as a president is to deliver a promise of good governance. I still don't understand what is difficult in delivering a promise of good governance. I don't know what is it that is difficult. To the extent that he wants to now use, or as people are thinking, don't even be part of incumbency to return the APC back to power. The APC has failed critically. The failure is a critical one that has put Nigeria on life support. The only natural thing for you to do is, and the only thing for you to do is allow Nigerian people to make a choice outside the APC. That choice must not necessarily be an equally failed PDP. You have a thought first coming. One for other parties. Give opportunity to allow genuine Nigerians that want to lead with integrity, with honesty, to be able to emerge through a free and fair process. Do that for posterity of yourself, your children, and your great-grandchildren that are yet to be born. Do that for them today. The system we are putting in place today that is unjust will come to haunt us in future. Mr. President has refused to do the needful and has left us in quandary. I do not even know the way out from here if the law is not signed into effect.
Okay. Thank you so much. Well, viewers, we need to go on a short break. When we come back, we'll be looking at other papers we have for review this morning. Don't go away. Stay tuned.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Inside Nigeria, keeping you informed on what matters.
welcome back. This is still Inside Nigeria on Leadership Television. And with me still in the studio to read the papers is a public affairs analyst, Mr. Majid Dahiru. So Majid, it's always a pleasure to host you on the
Thank you very
program.
much.
And I remain really grateful. So let's look at what our sister publication, National Economy, is saying. Wow. Yes, National Economy, Friday, 18th February 2022, has as its headline, How Nigeria's GDP Grew Faster Than Projected in 1 Year. How Nigeria's GDP grew faster than projected in 1 year, grew by 3.4% in 2021, strongest since 2014. How Nigeria's GDP grew faster than projected in 1 year. That is the headline story on national economy. And of course, another paper has almost the same headline story with national economy, and that paper is The Punch. Let's see what Punch is saying. Punch says federal government PDP clash as economy grows by 3.4%, highest in 7 years. Federal government, People's Democratic Party clash as economy grows by 3.4%, highest in 7 years. And of course, the People's Democratic Party says this is the voodoo economics of Buhari. When you talk of economic growth, it must have a direct impact on the lives of the people. And of course, the federal government, through Lai Mohammed, says we have an opposition that doesn't want to hear anything good about the country and this administration. How did you receive the news that GDP grew by 3.4%?
Let me say this. In the year 1999, between 1999 and 2007, the Obasanjo administration inherited a GDP growth of 0.8% in 1999, with crude oil price of $13, between $13 and $17 in 1999, and they didn't go beyond $67 to $70 in 2000. So that was the highest. It wasn't just so crude. But OPJ grew Nigeria GDP from 0.8% to 19% by 2004. 19%. And it steadied at average of between 6 to 7% throughout its tenure. And that was the trajectory up until sometime in 2013-14, when, of course, there was a drop in the growth. I think it slowed down to less than 3%. And the decline continued to enter recession, and we're out. What am I saying? Even during the era of a growth rate of average 6 to 7%, I was not impressed by this figure because it didn't have the impact on the people that it should have. You don't measure the health of an economy only by the growth of the GDP. What GDP essentially means is gross domestic product, activities of businesses within an economy. So in fact, it does not always have a direct bearing on welfare and the economic well-being of citizens per se. What would have excited me is if our GNP per capita has grown, it means the quality of life has improved. So celebrating a GDP growth of 3.4 when other African countries are doing 7% average, other African countries, and poverty has not improved. I don't know. Without sounding partisan, I think I want to agree with what the PDP is saying in this instance. That look, this has not translated into any form of gain for citizens. Nigerians are poorer today than in 2014. Nigerians are paying higher for basic commodities today than in 2014. The dollar has depreciated almost 50%, if not 100%, between 2014 and 2022. These are the real indices that is used to measure the economic well-being of citizens, not necessarily the growth of the GDP. So I just think any normal economy without much effort can grow at this rate. Anything below this would have been utter abject failure. It's like taking Nigeria down the road to recession and then bringing us a little bit out of it and you're thumping your chest that you've done well. You should have stopped the decline between 2014 and 2015. Stopped it. And when you are able to stop it, you would have grown GDP or at least maintained at a steady level over the period in time. So I don't know what anybody is debating about this. The real issues remain. Poverty is on the rise. Unemployment is high. Underemployment has become a norm. Somebody goes to school and becomes a graduate and is underemployed. He's asked to go and learn a skill and become a tailor, and become a confectionery maker, and become a shoemaker. So begin to ask, why did you go to the university in the first place if you're going to end up as a shoemaker, or somebody baking bread, or baking buns, or selling or second-hand clothes in the name of being an entrepreneur? These are the real issues. But again, I'll say this. The PDP also does not seem to have a solution to this problem. I've said it several because PDP controls some states. And I've not seen them as a party come up with an alternative governance model, economic philosophy that can get us to trust them enough to say, okay, let us try this model. It's not enough to just criticize the APC. What is that different thing the PDP is offering? There is none. And that is why I am saddened. Because we're like in a cul-de-sac. There's no way out. The main opposition party does not seem to present us with any alternative. And so we are stuck with two sets of very incompetent political players in the system that are dominant and are not allowing any other person to try. And let me say this, even the PDP is not very committed to electoral reform. If they're committed, we would have seen their own independent electoral commissions in their states performing excellently well, democratically, such that would have given them the moral basis to point the finger at the APC at the center. We've not seen that either. So for Nigerians, it's simply being caught up between a hard rock, between a rock and a hard place.
No, but what are the indices for measuring growth? Because we cannot just come up like PDP say voodoo. And you just highlighted that it has not translated into the improving people's lives. So how do they come up with these
Well, the
indices?
NBC has its how do you call it? Has its benchmark for measuring growth. They are saying that the intervention in the agriculture sector by CBN has expanded agricultural output and participation generally.
The Nigerians are still paying more for food.
That's why I said that you have more people farming does not necessarily translate into a good economy. Yes, it's a yes, one problem are going to farming. Most of the incentive money is offering. But that does not translate into affordability of rice or agri produce, even for the farmer. That does not translate into a good life for the farmer. That's the farmer will sell his rice at a higher cost. The doctor that buys rice at a higher cost will also place a higher cost on the cost of Medicare for the farmer and his family. The man that is supporting the rice on the farm that's also going to pay for that rice at a higher price is going to add his cost to his own transportation. So it's a vicious cycle. So that's the kind of growth no one that we should be celebrating at this point. It's not an inclusive growth from that term. An inclusive growth is one in which economic growth correlates with an improvement in the economic well-being of citizens, as seen in their increased prosperity. This is not the kind of growth we're having now. And let me just say this. Even in the past, growth in Nigeria wasn't as inclusive as one would have expected it to be. It's only fairly better than what we have now. But overall, we've not done well since 1999. We've not. So we need to have a conversation going forward on how to do this, how to have an inclusive growth, how to have an economy not only growing, but that is developing. And the only way we can achieve that is to have a much more serious, business-minded government that is ready and willing to grow Nigeria's economy into one that is export competitive, where it can earn enough forex from the global market into the individual economic clusters in Nigeria and then grow prosperity and generate revenue for government. Until we have that kind of model, we will not experience the kind of inclusive growth that ordinarily should be the case with Nigeria. If you look at European countries, for example, their GDP growth is not as phenomenal as developing countries. It's always within this range, between 2% and 5%. So they don't measure their own economic progress by the growth of the economy alone. So they now look at issues such as unemployment, inflation, and GNP per capita. I mean, how much from the volume of our foreign receipts, from our foreign trade and other activities, how much can a citizen be legitimately entitled to in a year? Aha. But Nigeria's GNP per capita is very low. It's one of the lowest in the world as we still speak. Because for a country of 200 million people, our gross national earnings, mostly on crude oil sales, is not enough to grow prosperity in this country.
Thank you so much. From the bunch, we're moving over to the last paper we have on our menu for review, and that is This Day. This Day has a different story entirely on this cover this morning. It says 365 days to presidential election, the aspirants are emerging. 365 days, that is a year to presidential election, the aspirants are emerging. And some of those who have declared are, we have Tinubu, we have Ayin, Umahi, Dele Momodu, Okunu Lamidi, we have Osibanjo, we have Atiku, we have Emefiele, Saraki, and Amechi. These are the pictures this day displayed on this cover this morning of those aspirants that are emerging for 2023
Very
presidential election.
I'm still emotionally.
So, what do you want to say about it? Starting with Tinubu, I just want you to give analysis on each and every one of them.
Honestly, without sounding a bit pessimistic,
Yes.
I would have thought that Tinubu would have thrown his weight behind Osibanjo.
Okay.
The truth is, Tinubu may be good as a politician. Tinubu may not have that image, that capacity, that tendency of a man that Nigerians would want to be the president. You see, if you look at everybody that has ruled Nigeria since 1999, they always come across as the best available, the most decent, the most with integrity. They are like the best at every electoral season, from OBJ to Yaradua to Jonathan and then Buhari. So they just always vote for that good man, that angelic figure. Tinubu does not cut that
figure.
He doesn't. So I would have wanted him to throw his weight behind somebody who comes closest to this image within his own camp, and that is Vice President Osibanjo. Now, Anyim. I'm excited about Anyim's coming out boldly because I believe in parachute. I believe for equity and fairness, parachute go to the south. And the Southeast have always clamored for presidency. But I've always said, look, you don't have to clamor. Come out and compete. And so when Anyim came out to show interest and has been going out to campaign and within the PDP, I said, yes, this is somebody that's what Nigeria can rally around. Anyim has been Senate President before, Anyim has been SJ before. Yes. And if you look at Anyim, in all of his interventions in public discourse, that has been measured, that has been moderate, with a sense of statesmanship. And because he has occupied one of these high offices, I think he has an understanding of how Nigeria works from both executive and legislative angle. And maybe he has the network of associates across the country that could rally around behind him. So for the Southeast, I think their strongest bet yet for presidency is Anyim.
What about the one behind, just beside him, Umahi?
Now, Umahi is of the APC. Umahi has been governor, yes, two-time governor. The problem one is having that is going to contest on.
And people say he has performed
excellently well. Umahi is a fantastic governor. Yes. In terms of infrastructure that we can see. Yes. One of the best performing governors in Nigeria. Now, but Umahi is of the APC. The APC is not so predisposed to giving their ticket to the Southeast for now. It is clear. And so people like Umahi are seen as opportunistic elements that are coming to fill that void of the Southeast.
Don't you think he may have been led astray because he told us that he was asked to defer to the party, that he was promised the ticket?
Every politician is always claiming that he was being asked. So Umahi would have made a stronger showing for this presidency if he had remained in the PDP. because the PDP owes a debt of gratitude to the Southeast.
Yes.
So if you ask me, the PDP should actually give the Southeast the first out of refusal for the ticket, my frank opinion. That region has stood by the PDP through thick and thin and have paid severely for it. So, something will give it to them. So, Umahi's invitation will be the fact that he's going on the platform of the APC. Now, of course, Dele Momodu, well,
Yes.
through his journalistic works.
Yes.
So, well, we can only wish him well. He's joined the PDP, a mainstream party. It depends on how well he's able to negotiate within the PDP ranks to get the ticket. One thing he has to do is for him to come up with a very, very strong vision and mission that is compelling enough to break the ranks of the PDP, of an establishment party like the PDP, to break the ranks enough, to actually be enough to say, okay, let us give him a try. He has to work extra hard on this manifesto. He needs to prove a point within the party before he can actually stand a chance.
You have the lady beside Dele
The lady,
Momodu.
okay, I don't know much about her, but it's good that she's coming out to contest alongside the men for the presidency. Maybe I'll read up more about her in the coming days to find out what she's up to. Now, for the ones that have not declared, let me start with the APC as a party. You see, ordinarily, it is clear that the APC has made up its mind to zone to the south from all indications. And that is why you have no northerner per se, Yabelo, that is indicating interest for presidency within the APC ranks. Most of them are contest for party chairman.
Right.
Ordinarily, you see, Minister Amici should have been that natural choice to settle all contending issues, South, Igbo, and he stood by Buhari from the very beginning. I used to describe Amici as the knife that tore the PDP umbrella.
Yes.
Because Amichi's pulling out of the PDP at the time he did was one of the reasons that consolidated the entire country behind Buhari. And he did not just pull out of PDP to APC, he pulled out to go and support Buhari. And he took a risk that if it had gone the other way, I don't know what would have been Amichi's fate then. So ordinarily, Amici should have been that natural choice that would have settled the clamor for Igbo presidency on one hand. And in the power, she was like killing two birds with one stone. Amici has an Igbo identity, as well as being from this Niger Delta and being, a party man too. However, Amici has allowed himself to be dragged into the mud by his nemesis.
By his what?
Nemesis, political nemesis, Governor Wiki. You see, his quarrels with Wiki, his fight, his fiasco with Wiki, in the last 6.5 years that he's been a minister and Wiki has been governor, has reduced Amici from that presidential attitude, pedestal that a presidential hopeful is supposed to have. That decorum, that sense of decency that somebody wants a president who aspires to president is supposed to have.
He has heard his piece, if you notice.
For some time, right? But I think he made that mistake initially. And between you and I tried to reach out to him through some people. Say, look, he has prospects. That's the presidential from now. Forget about Rivers election. Forget about Rivers politics. You cannot have a good show in there because you are seen as a sellout. It's your fate. Concentrate on national development and national politics. But unfortunately, each of those things appear to have distracted him somewhat. But that's not to say he's completely disqualified. He's still within reckoning. He's still with his why he's supported strongly within the establishment, particularly in the North. That's a strong support base. But let us try to pan out.
There are speculations that he may be the dark horse that Buhari is supporting.
Yes, it's possible. Who knows? It's possible. But it's also possible that the dark horse.
Giving his chieftaincy title in Daura.
Well, that alone is not an indication. But because the dark horse would have been still be very, 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 very dark. And would not have been receiving title in Daura if he did the dark horse. I don't think Amici not so much of a dark horse. Amici is a major contender. He's only not just declared because in the cabinet yet. Otherwise, Amici is a contender. But I'm just trying to say, well, if he can manage that aspect between now and in the next few weeks or months, Amici might still be within strong reckoning. However, still within the APC, Adusimbajo has managed to maintain his status, that dignity,
The VP.
that he has managed to maintain some level of decorum and decency. The type of business that Nigerians would want in their leader. If you look at Osinbajo, he's not been quarreling with anybody at all for political reasons. Not even with Asiwaju, who appears to also want to contest. Not with the state governor, either in Ogun State or Lagos State. We've not had cases of the vice president engaged in certain level of politics. He's been more concerned about moving Nigeria forward in his own way. You may not agree with his thinking, I do not agree with his policies and program proposals, but he seems to be a forward-looking man. He's not so young, but he has a very youthful and energetic persona that inspires hope among the young people of Nigeria. In fact, I can tell you for free that going into the race in 2023, somebody appears to be the most popular amongst all in the youth demographic.
Many people seem to blame the so-called element of this failed leadership on him, that he refused to play.
But for those that are disabled enough, know that a vice president cannot actually do otherwise. And that's why the few times he was in charge as president, he did certain things that showed clearly that he can be a very firm, pro-people leader. He was one who fired Dawa, fired the SDF. He undertook shuttle diplomacy to the Niger Delta to get Avengers to stop bombing the zone when President Buhari's strong attack tactic failed. He was not actually granted bail to the African station in the southeast. Not that he granted bail already, he was in charge when the bail was granted. So he comes across as a man who is conciliatory, who is peaceful, who has the ability to unite Nigerians around the common cause, and who is forward looking. And so Osinbajo, for me, would have been one of the best options for the APC. And let me restate this, to put it on record. Tinubu would do us, himself, his region, his party a lot of good if today he decides to step down his ambition and push Osinbajo forward. Two things comes to mind here. A sitting minister and a former ally of Tinubu has come out openly to antagonize him. Second, as we speak, today's Friday, he is the coordinator of support groups, Honorable Jibun Abdulmumin, who is an ED with the National Housing Authority, Federal Housing Authority. He's facing a panel today for offenses related to his political activities, his open campaign for Tinubu. And what this tells you that probably the powers that be, those who hired both Arabeshola and Abumumi, may not be so comfortable with his presidential bid. So he should have taken it as a clear handwriting on the wall now and allow Osinbajo to come out and be supported. I say this because Osinbajo will not likely declare if Tinubu remains in the race in order to get the whole thing messy. So Tinubu would have suffocated Osinbajo's ambition and still not get it himself. So it's better to allow a credible candidate in Osinbajo to come out. I'm not saying this because I'm supporting Osinbajo, no. I'm making a fair analysis.
Yes.
Let Osinbajo come out and compete with that of Amenchi and others for the APC ticket. And if he wins, let him go and contend what the PDP is going to bring. Now, enough said about that. Now, Emefiele is one of the strongest contenders for the APC ticket, even though he has not declared.
And there was something that happened. Initially, he told us he was not interested.
Well, everybody says
But
so.
later, just 2 days ago, he said his fate is in God's hands.
That's how politicians usually say it. One of the strongest contenders for the ticket of the APC, with a large network of support base.
And people are also suspecting to his also maybe probably the dark horse that Buhari is supporting.
Again, I don't think he's the dark horse because his ambition has become very known and well known to everybody. There's still a dark horse somewhere, and that dark horse is not on this paper. The dark horse is not there yet. Because for a dark horse, you don't even be seen from afar. So that dark horse is still in the dark. He's not come to light yet. Or she's not come to light because maybe a woman, I don't know. But that cause is not here. Now, so
What do you want to have?
Emefiele is a strong contender. He's a strong contender. But the truth is,
Does he have the national appeal?
he does within the political cycle. He does. Have very strong
Nigerians.
backers. And that's not the question. How will Nigerians assess his tenure as CBN governor? But it is one person that will hear the baggage or the failure of the APC government. It is Emefiele in one way. Because he was seen to have bent the rules, practically used the CBN as a proto government within the government. Just to cover up the cracks of the physical failure, the physical policy failure of the government. In fact, the CBN under Emefiele is running both physical and monetary responsibilities by direct intervention in the economy direct. The only thing that Emefiele has not done is to appoint ministers, but he's intervening in almost every sector, agriculture, banking, everywhere he's directly intervening. So people are seeing that as, okay, in one way, those who support him think he had to deploy that ingenuity to save the economy, whatever is left of the economy from collapse. What's my saying that as? No. If, as a CBN governor, you would have crossed the line doing that. History will judge him accordingly. But he is a contender and has supporters across board. But let me just say this. If you let him make a good president, who knows? It depends. I don't know his agenda. But like my friend Dele Momodu, if he wants to run, he has to come up with a very strong and compelling message. Because he needs to prove a point. But President does not need to prove a point much because he has been vice president. We've seen what he can do. Amechi does not need to prove too much points. Because Amechi too is also a very detribalized Nigerian. Give it to him.
Oh, yes.
Very detribalized. The kind of Nigerian that Nigerians also want that can unite us. So he doesn't need to prove that point too much. But Emefiele needs to prove a point by telling us exactly what he wants to do as president. If it is interesting. Now, Atiku as Saraki of the PDP.
Yes.
Let's start with Saraki. Well, Saraki has followers and admirers across the country. Definitely one of the most finest politicians in Nigeria. But for a Nigerian and Nigerians who want to build going forward, Saraki may not be a perfect fit in the imagination of many. Again, for Saraki to contend very well in this coming election, Saraki must come up with a very powerful and compelling vision. In that vision, he would admit subtly that, okay, they that have been in the system may have been wrong in certain aspects, and I want to follow a brand new direction if given the opportunity. He needs to convince a lot of Nigerians that policies of patronage, as Saraki is well known for as the leader of PDP Inquirer for so many years, is one that will give way to a pragmatic politics where good governance will be the reward system for political participation. Saraki needs to prove this point beyond reasonable doubt. That governance will not be all about politics. Saraki is too much a politician, to be trusted to be president. That's also the problem Tinubu is having. He's too much a politician. He's seen as part and parcel of the establishment. But the likes of Osimanjo, the likes of even Umahi, to some extent, Amechi and Kwa are seen as, okay, they are politicians, but they have some other aspects to them that is not all politics. Saraki is too much a politician. And so he needs to whittle down that a little bit.
And project his father's
exactly, and project the administrative ingenuity that he can bring to bear. He needs to see more of his governance aspect than political. There's too much of politics in the Saraki mix. But another challenge Saraki will face is just like Atiku is. He might be sailing against the wind. There's a general clamor for powership to the south. Southerners themselves that have been the strongest supporters of the PDP say they want power. So I do not know how Northern candidate like Saraki will now want to convince them to abandon one of their own that the APC is likely to bring and support them. I don't know how he's going to do that. Now, Atiku, Saraki is from the north, and he's also going to be sailing against the wind. Atiku is part of what I describe as Nigeria's golden era between 1999 and 2007. That administration remains the best in the history of Nigeria. Other than borrowing money, they paid up our debts.
Yes.
Atiku has a strong, very powerful, unifying character. He's a nationalist to the core. Atiku is also a man that understands business enough to be able to understand an economy and how economy functions, but he's a businessman, a successful one at that. Now, but two things are going to play against Atiku. From age, Atiku is also from the north. So the southern support base of the PDP saying we want power. And so how Atiku is going to negotiate that with his southern support base, what I don't know. But again, in Atiku, I've seen something. He has a strong support base even as we speak in the south. A lot of people that are protecting him are from the south.
Yes.
And why is that? Between 2015 and today, that President Muhammadu Buhari has unleashed, an unprecedented level of sectionalism in Nigeria, nepotism, communism, tribalism, and some elements of regional bigotry. Atiku has managed to remain a bulwark against these tendencies, even if he's also Fulani, Muslim, and a northerner, like the president. For example, on the issue of harassment, terrorism, Atiku have been very frontal about it by saying you cannot sustain the transhuman nomadic activities of herdsmen, that they have to settle and take care of their cattle through feeding lots. He's been very open about this. He's not supported such activities of his own kinsmen, other on the basis of saying that grass routes were blocked or otherwise. He's not made any such comments. And he has always offered solution to this problem and pledged to fight it if given the opportunity. And so that has endeared him to the South. He has spoken against nepotism. He has spoken against one of the tendencies that has actually made the South resolute on getting the presidency through. So what I'm saying in essence is Atiku has come across in the last 6.5 years a Nigerian that is as much a Southerner as he is a Northerner. So a lot of Southerners see Atiku from their perspective that, look, this man is not a Northerner. He's a Nigerian that we're comfortable with, that will do justice to all. That's working for Atiku, at least within the PDP. So it's left for how much each of them can concentrate on their strengths and improve on their weaknesses. That will demand. But most importantly, beyond the individuals, my dear sister, the problem of Nigeria is beyond them as individuals. Even though everything falls, rises and falls on leadership, we need this set of people to be guided by a people's consensus about the need to unite Nigeria, first and foremost, and grow our economy in an integrated manner that ties every part of the country to an export competitive economy. That should be the agenda for this, all of them, whatever they are. That should be the agenda as Nigerian people for them. So each of them can now improve on this and define this agenda in whatever way they feel, but it has to have this foundation. And so I think we all have a role to play in the next election. We need to scrutinize each and every one of them properly and vote for them not along tribal or religious lines, but vote for them based on the social contract that we have on the table with them. So okay, you have promised to do this, family. We're voting for you. I'm excited to see that a lot of labor unions are beginning to say, okay, we want to go to partisan politics to negotiate what we want as unions. It's very interesting.
You just do the words out of my mouth. That's what I was just going to say. What about the people in the manufacturing sector, the business sector?
Thank you very much.
They're supposed to be the one to set an agenda for these aspirants.
I need to
Don't
give
you think
you-
so?
I need to
Instead
give
of
you-
just taking the back seat.
I need to give you a cow this morning for this question. I need to present you with a very fat cow. But it tells me that even as a presenter, even as people in the media, you understand the issues. You see, before now, we should look for political power based on tribalism. The manufacturer will leave his manufacturing business, go to his village, and go and negotiate how to vote for people and not, and then come back to his manufacturing business in Lagos and Abuja and expect development and expect improvement in manufacturing. Manufacturers as a block, whether you're Igbo, Yoruba, Muslim, Christian, Hausa, Northerner, Southerner, They should form a tribe of manufacturers down.
No, they even have man, they have association.
Before now, man do not participate in politics actively. What they do is they deal with government in power, and their individual, they align their politics along identity politics. So I'm saying, like you just pointed out, man should come together with what they think they want and get each other to adopt it. So that that critical sector of the real economy,
yes,
that is where the economy is supposed to actually lie. That's what manufacturing are saying. They can now get the necessary policies from each of these aspirants that will increase their capabilities and capacities for export competitiveness and keep emphasizing export competitiveness. With manufacture, you should substitute import first and then you export. So that is where the real money comes in.
yes, okay.
But yeah, imagine, for example, manufacturers in Lagos are able to export $10 billion worth of goods per annum from Lagos into the West Coast market and other parts of the world. Meaning $10 billion comes into manufacturing. That is more than what we are earning from crude. Just manufacturing. So imagine other sectors like agriculture, or if agricultural sector attracts the same $10 billion, and other sectors attract the same, the economy would have been diversified. So we just follow our own, anywhere your own economy lies, you follow it and participate. So they need to come together as a block. Labor needs to come together as a block. ASU, the same thing as a block. National Association of Resident Doctors, National Medical Association, Nigerian Medical Association of Nigeria, NUJ, NGE. We must all come together and say, okay, what is it that is affecting journalism in Nigeria, the business of journalism in Nigeria, and how do we want to ameliorate it? We put it together for the aspirants. So what I'm saying in essence is, please, fellow Nigerians, in this election, let us not invite aspirants and expect them to come and give us money in our unions. No. Let us invite them and tell them what we want. And when they adopt it and commit to doing it, let us even contribute for them and vote for them without collecting money. And let us be the agents at the polling units. So that the person will not spend too much money and not decide to want to recruit from the system and short change us. So we must all be participants in the political process. There's nothing wrong with politics. What is wrong with politics are bad elements that are coming in because good guys like you are refusing to participate. And to do this effectively, let me also add this. If you are a labor union chairman in Abuja, even if you are originally from Cross River, for example, the union chairman in Abuja is from Cross River, Emmanuel Obechi.
Yes.
Mr. Emmanuel, if you are listening to us now, begin to do the politics of Abuja. It's Abuja that you are. Begin to participate in the politics of Abuja actively. Your training as a journalist, your enlightenment as a journalist should make you a refined citizen enough to make Abuja. Because you have no business in Cross River, it's Abuja that you are even having a stake. So you should participate in politics in Abuja. You must be involved with your members across the country that are domiciled in Abuja on how Abuja first is governed within the integrated development plan that Nigeria is going to likely evolve going forward. As a manufacturer in Lagos, if Lagos is where you are doing manufacturing, please engage in the politics of Lagos State. And make sure that you fight for tax rebate, tax cut, and a lot of other incentives from the Lagos State government first. And you elect legislators from Lagos that come to Abuja and fight through legislation for the interest of manufacturing in Lagos. Don't abandon manufacturing in Lagos. Go back to your villages to election and allow touts, and allow homolinas, and allow tribal chieftains to now elect people on top of your head into Abuja that will come here and their business is just to come and get as much as they can get for the traditional cake and take it back to the people. Without factoring into your economic interest into the legislation. There has been a misalignment of government politics for a long time, since 1999. We need to start that alignment today so that politics will be economically productive.
Yes.
So it's important. So I'm so happy that you brought up the issue of man. All unions, all trade unions. In fact, let me tell you this. Do you know that party structure is structured along trade unions?
Yes.
For example, in Abuja today, the PDP or APC structure should have been made up of people that have legitimate economic interest in Abuja. Simple. Now, and that is because the APC would have, or the PDP would have come up with an ideology. I mean, this is what we think. I'll give you a simple issue of tax cut. The party can say, look, we think we should cut the rate of price in Abuja now
Yes.
from the 30% as it is to 10%. So that businesses can grow and you can have more money in your pockets. Some people say no.
Employees don't want it.
Some people say no. We want to increase taxes. But this tax, we use it to fix all public schools, all public hospitals. So they don't need to go to private school or private hospital. But you're going to pay higher tax. It's not if I'm just okay. Do we accept tax cuts? Or this? Which one in my situation, which one do I really prefer?
Yes.
So the party that says I want this one is simply aligned and campaign and vote for them. The one that says I want it depends on what your reality. That is all. So at the end of the day, the party don't need to pay money.
Yes.
At the primary level, you see responsible men at the party member that come and line up. I said, okay, talk. We're voting for this candidate because he has promised this within the party.
Tax cuts. This one say
So I said this. That is all. So no, but there's no struggle. The candidate is even free of all stress, because he doesn't have stress, he doesn't have problem. If you vote for me, fine. You don't vote for me, I go to my house. We need to move to that level of politics.
Just need to. At the end of the day, you will still see 2023. They will just ban the restructuring as if restructuring is the problem.
It's the problem. I will go and vote along tribal lines and religious lines.
You know, like we pointed out, restructuring as if restructuring is a problem. Niger Delta, with all the allocation they get, they cannot come up with
one. See, that's 99. Delta does not have a refinery.
Think about it.
Rivers does not have a refinery. Akwa Ibom does not have a refinery. No. See, that's 99. And I'm saying the refinery here is not charity. It will bring you revenue that you've never seen before. Okay, look. They are importing 1 billion liters of petrol. Imagine 9 other states are the ones refining and selling 1 billion liters of petrol in a year.
Don't talk of the end products of crude. That you are going to also have business.
Meaning that all the airlines in Nigeria are now buying aviation fuel from Nigeria refineries, kerosene, AGO, paraffin.
Yes.
What? Nigeria state would have been one of the richest in the world. Nigeria market is enough for them, not talk about export. They sat down in 1999. They didn't do it.
It's restructuring that is a problem.
Restructuring.
Everybody give chance. You just watch out for 2023.
That's going to be the conversation. Ethnic and religious based campaign. I want to finish with that. Start speaking about roads and development. It's unfortunate.
Very, very unfortunate, Mr. Wajid. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program. How I wish actually that our politicians will these thoughts and bring them into reality.
They're not thinking. They're not thinking.
Unfortunately,
they're thinking for their own. They're thinking for themselves.
Yes. You see the general that stole so much money. They are still unraveling.
What are you doing? What are you doing with such?
It's really sad. That's why most of our politicians want to say do or die thing. They want to just get into power and steal all the money. For their generations yet to come.
It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Fortunately, too, time is not on our side. This is where we have to call it a day on today's program. Don't forget to keep safe over the weekend. Mr. Majid, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Taking our time to be with us anytime we call.
Thank you very much.
I remember. See you next week morning. Bye.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.